Good morning to those once again and portions of the Philippines and now as well as Vietnam. Today we're going to be discussing Tropical Storm Verbena, also known as 33W internationally, and its impacts across the Philippines and now once again portions of Vietnam, which could be seeing some impacts from the system in the 5-day range. So I'm going to be sharing the stream and then we'll get right into it. Alright, that works, and that works. Alright, let's see if anybody's in the chat. Guys, can you hear me alright now? I know last time I did a little bit of a mess up with the microphone. Alright, good morning, Eisen. Good morning, Richie. I see you all in the chat. Thanks for the confirmation. Alright, so let's discuss the forecast cone now. Where's it expected to go? Well, currently it's a tropical storm just northwest of the Negros Island region, and it is going to be moving very close to western Visayas before then moving towards Mimaropa, mainly around northern Palawan, within around the next 12 hours or so, still as a minimal tropical storm. It will then be entering into the South China Sea just beyond the 12-hour range, and intensifying all the way up until a typhoon by around hour 48. It will likely be peaking out somewhere between day 2 and day 3 as a Category 1, maybe even Category 2 or stronger typhoon, before it then begins to weaken as it meanders northwards on day 4 and day 5. Gets a little bit close to Vietnam, but it's uncertain just how close will it get. Will it make a landfall? Will it stay out to sea? It's a bit uncertain this far out. Now let's talk impacts. Marginal impacts are expected for a large portion of the Philippines, and that does include western Mindanao, as well as portions of western eastern Visayas and central Visayas, as well as portions of the Bicol region, and much of western portions of central Luzon, and the southern portions of the Ilocos region. Now, also, in looking at portions of Vietnam, it does include the coast of southeastern Vietnam, and also in an area towards Laos. In terms of the islands, the Batanes Islands and the Western Babuan Islands are also in that marginal category. Upping it now to the slight category, and describing real quick what slight means. This is mostly going to be due to flooding, so localized flooding may affect low spots. These are areas that will likely see over 100 millimeters of rain, and that will include the entirety of Palawan, pretty much there, as well as the western Negros Island region, as well as the entirety of western Visayas and the entirety of Mindoro. It does also include portions of the Bicol region, Calabarzon, and central Luzon, Cagayan Valley, and the CAR, and also portions of Ilocos Norte and far northern Ilocos Sur. Also, the southeastern Babuan Islands are in that as well. Upping it now to the moderate category, and what do I mean by that? Flooding of neighborhoods and small rivers are possible, making some roads impassable. That's over 200 millimeters of rainfall expected in these areas, and that does include eastern Mindoro, as well as portions of the Cagayan Valley, which does include some areas of Aurora, Isabela, Cagayan, Apayao, and Ilocos Norte, or in that moderate category. Now, there are going to be two areas that could be seeing potentially major impacts. And what do we mean by major impacts? Well, life-threatening flooding in vulnerable areas. So these are the areas that will be likely seeing the most severe flooding, and that will be in portions of Isabela, Cagayan, and maybe far northeastern Ilocos Norte. These are the areas that are going to be seeing just tremendous rainfall amounts. As the system doesn't even get close to those areas, it's growing in size. So some of the influence there on the northern side is just going to be pounding those regions over the next 5 days or so. Alright, now let's discuss the world of tropics right now, since we are tracking three other land threats, really. We, of course, have Tropical Storm 33W, that's Verbena, here with winds of 40 miles an hour. But we also have a disturbance after that. I've been seeing the chat mentioning this. There's a 40% chance of something developing over the next 7 days, and it could impact the Philippines within the next 10 days. I will continue to have more updates on that over the coming days, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. We are getting closer and closer to 6,000 subscribers, so every new subscriber really helps the channel out a lot. In the Indian Ocean, we now have Tropical Depression 95B with winds of 35 miles an hour, although that may be a conservative estimate. It is currently near Malaysia and Indonesia, going to be moving towards far northern Indonesia, potentially intensifying to a tropical storm. We are currently, and also near Sri Lanka, we have an Invest here, Invest 96B, with a 40% chance of development over the next 48 hours and an 80% chance over the next 7 days. That could be moving over Sri Lanka as a disturbance or tropical cyclone. Could be delivering some tremendous amounts of rainfall there. And of course, in the Australian region, we still have Tropical Storm Fina here, which is going to be dissipating over the next day or so over Western Australia. Now, talking about codes, we are currently at code pink here, the second highest code level for 33W, but we are also code orange right now for 95B and code yellow for 96B. So again, we have two other land threats we need to be talking about, but currently the main threat that we're focusing on in this tropical update is going to be 33W. So let's look at the latest satellite imagery on this system, and let's zoom out a little bit. Its mid-level circulation is currently over portions of western Visayas there, but its low-level circulation is likely just to the southeast, just off the Negros Island region. So zooming out a bit, we can just see how large of a system it is and how large its influence is all the way reaching up to as far north as the Babuan Islands. That's why they are going to be seeing some tremendous amounts of rainfall. We can already see part of this banding already moving towards Luzon. We also have some more banding to the southwest, but fortunately most of that is out over the water. And also the main convection here, the main thunderstorms are currently now to the southwest of western Visayas, now impacting portions of Palawan. In terms of cloud tops are very cold right now. A very strong thunderstorm has bursted over western Visayas, so we could be seeing some torrential rainfall in those areas, and that could be approaching Palawan over the next 12 hours or so. Also, you can see off to the northeast now, impacting portions of the Bicol region. Very strong thunderstorms there as well. Now, looking at the environmental conditions, they will be conducive for some quick strengthening over the next mainly 24 to 48 hours or so before shear begins to quickly increase in that moderate category. So as you can see on these model runs, they do have it peaking out as a typhoon, but then it kind of gets uncertain as to what it does after that. Sea surface temperatures are going to be decreasing, so it becomes pretty less favorable by the time it enters the South China Sea and approaches Vietnam. Dry air will also begin to become more of an issue by then. So it looks like right now a Category 1 or Category 2 peak is the most likely case scenario. In terms of distances, how far away is the system from certain areas? Let's discuss that. Again, it looks like it's just to the southeast of, or just to the south of western Visayas, so it's only around 40 kilometers away or so. Its center is roughly around 290 kilometers away from Palawan, and from Cebu City it's 190 kilometers away, and that is increasing. Manila, it's around 500 kilometers away. It's about to make its closest approach to you in around the next few hours or so. And then looking west towards Vietnam, it's roughly now down to 1,500 kilometers or less away from you in Vietnam. Now, discussing the latest model runs, this is the latest HAFS-A model run, does have it becoming a pretty broad and sloppy tropical cyclone by the time it moves through Mimaropa. After it clears it, though, it does try to get a little bit more organization, and it stays pretty much a sheer tropical cyclone with most of its convection and thunderstorms off towards the west. And then it becomes a little bit more consolidated by the time it starts approaching Vietnam there. Likely looking at a typhoon even by day 5. Yes, typhoon being forecasted by the time we get to day 5. Could see a secondary peak. We'll see. In terms of the environmental conditions, though, up until its peak, how bad is the shear looking? Okay, yeah, shear's really bad here in that moderate to high category. So that's what's trying to keep the system on the weaker side. Still should become a typhoon. And now looking at the other various model runs, the European run does have it becoming a typhoon, and it does have it making landfall in portions of Vietnam there as a weaker tropical cyclone. And looking at the next system after that, seeing if it shows anything about it, we can see another disturbance here beginning to impact the Philippines, but this is beyond the 10-day range. Doesn't have anything forming within the 10-day range. Looking at the American run, it does have it becoming a typhoon, stalls in the South China Sea before then moving on towards Vietnam, central Vietnam, where those devastating floods have occurred. Looking at the Canadian model run, it does have it becoming a typhoon in the South China Sea, but it just stalls and then dissipates. And we can see the next disturbance there becoming a tropical cyclone by the Mariana Islands and moves through Guam before becoming potentially a typhoon, and then it just meanders around. It doesn't really impact anyone there. And then looking at the German run, the 12Z run here, does have it becoming a strong tropical storm, then typhoon, and it does have it making landfall in Vietnam as a severe tropical storm, and we can see that next low pressure area developing in the Philippine Sea by day 7 or 8. Looking at the European ensembles, and I'll show the 12Z one so we can see the disturbance after that. It's uncertain as to if and when it will make a landfall in Vietnam there. You can see just how spread apart they are. Some have it moving off towards the north and never makes landfall in Vietnam, although some have it quickly moving off towards the west and impacting southeastern Vietnam. And we can see some of those other ensemble members picking up on that next disturbance within the 10-day range, impacting portions of the Philippines. See if we can pull up more so on the probability of where it's going. Yeah, so the consensus does have it moving generally towards Vietnam. Does it make a landfall? Does it not? Again, that's quite uncertain. Now, looking at the American ensembles, these have it stalling more out to sea longer than the European does, but most of them do have it eventually moving west towards Vietnam. We can see that other disturbance here developing near the northern Mariana Islands, although that may be a little bit more to the north and a little bit more quicker than some of the other models have been showing. As we can see here, here's that next signal, and then here's a look at 33W or Verbena. Now looking at the European AI model run and what it is showing, it does have the system becoming a tropical cyclone, but first off discussing 33W, it does have it remaining a severe tropical storm by the time it, or throughout the time in the South China Sea, before eventually dissipating by the time it reaches Hainan Island. We can see the next disturbance pretty much becomes a tropical cyclone within the next 7 days, shows what's being forecasted here. It does become a typhoon within the next 10 days, and it does make landfall in the Philippines around day 11 or so. Could be a typhoon threat for Metro Manila. It's a little bit far out, though, to say where it's going to be going for sure, for certain. Now let's talk rainfall right now in terms of how much rainfall could areas be seeing. Starting off with the European run, let's go to this 7-day range here. In terms of portions of the northern Philippines here, northeastern Philippines, the Cagayan Valley, some areas here could be seeing over 700 to 800 millimeters of rainfall, where some areas over here could see 500 to 600 millimeters of rain. And portions of Metro Manila, not a whole lot, are only around 50 millimeters of rain. It all really depends on where you're located at, specifically as to how much rainfall you'll be getting. Localized totals could be over 600 to 700 millimeters of rain. In portions of southeastern Vietnam, rainfall totals up to 300 millimeters are being forecasted by the European run. Swapping over to the American run, not as high of rainfall totals for portions of the Philippines, but still the Cagayan Valley does get decent rainfall totals up to 400 millimeters. Then looking at portions of Vietnam, rainfall totals as high as 100 to 200 millimeters of rain are possible. The latest German run does still show high totals of, or high accumulations of rain in Cagayan Valley, up to 400 millimeters is possible there. Then portions of Vietnam, again, could see up to 200 to 300 millimeters of rain on this model run. Now moving over to the Access model run, just a little bit of a better job. Rainfall totals in Vietnam only around 100 to 200 millimeters are being forecasted there. Now let's see if we can pull up kind of the forecasted track on where it's expected to go. Again, the consensus does have it curving off towards the north. It will make a brief jog to the southwest, but it will be moving more to the north, looks like at the very end here. Then what it does after, it's anybody's guess at this point. Does it move to the southwest? Does it move to the north? We can now take a look at the latest Google AI Ensemble members. The 18Z run we get to look at now. Let's pull this up. See what is the consensus now showing for a peak here. The consensus does have it peaking out as a category 1 or 2. It does begin to move to the north though, so like I said earlier, it will be moving to the west-northwest before then curving to the west-southwest, before then moving back to the northwest. Will it be making landfall in Vietnam? Again, that's uncertain. If it's on the western side of this guidance, then it looks more likely to be making landfall in Vietnam. If it's more to the east, it looks like it will be missing Vietnam. Now let's talk about that next signal here, as this could become a decent typhoon threat for parts of the Philippines. Let's see how many of these members are picking up now. Okay, looks like every single ensemble member now is showing the system becoming at least something. In terms of when it's going to be traceable, looks like it could be traceable within the next 3 to 4 days. By the time we get to around at day 6 or 7, looks like it will be becoming a potential tropical storm or even typhoon. The consensus does have it making landfall in the Philippines as a typhoon within the next 10 days. Beyond that, it's a bit uncertain as to... It's just too uncertain to really talk about where it could go. But yeah, it could be going off towards the far north and towards the Mariana Islands and then out to sea. Could be going towards the northern end and impacting portions of Luzon. Could be going straight through the Visayas region. Or it could be going towards the south, towards Mindanao. Again, it's just uncertain as to where it will go. Which one of these 5 tracks is it going to try and follow? Again, though, if you're in the Philippines, just keep checking back for updates, okay? You have plenty of time to monitor this. Alright, now let's answer some questions. How did 95B become a tropical depression? Well, the waters are warm, and I believe the shear is low. Let's take a look at the environmental conditions over here. In terms of wind shear, yeah, I mean, it's quite low right there. Decent divergence there. So it's pretty favorable there. Not a whole lot of shear ripping it apart. It's lands that would be disrupting it. If the circulation decides to move over lands. But yeah, we can see on the vorticity here, we can see that closed circulation, and on some of the other vorticity plots, we can see a very much better defined circulation. Just waiting on a scatterometer pass. Yeah, so there could be another storm tailing 92W, yes. Again, it's at a 40% chance of developing within the next 7 days. Any impacts in the Philippines looks like would be around the 10-day range. Yeah, the next storm could impact the Cagayan region, as I discussed earlier, where it could go. Could impact Cagayan. Again, it's just uncertain this far out. When will you make the 2025 animations? Well, the Eastern Pacific one should be coming out in mid-December. I've pretty much finished all but 4 of the storms. Just because I was waiting for the National Hurricane Center Tropical Cyclone reports to come out about damages and deaths. But I'm going to be trying to finalize that pretty soon. Going to be working on that a lot tomorrow. I'll be continuing to post updates on my Instagram. Let's see, well, that's about it. Thank you all so much for watching. Now, the next update will likely be tomorrow. I believe, if not tomorrow, then probably here. I'm going to look at the forecast again. In terms of when the next update could be, it will probably be tomorrow. I guess it's... I don't know. It may be a little bit until another update. If it's not tomorrow, then it may be a little while. Should be seeing an update in at least the next 2 days, though. Mainly talking about 95B and 96B, those threats. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next updates. Stay safe.